Hey, welcome to American Reversion. I'm Steve Smith. First off, I want to welcome all of the new subscribers. We've really been growing here, and also everybody who has joined over on Patreon. Great to have you over there. Thank you for supporting the channel. I do encourage everyone to go over there and spend $1 a month because I'm putting up content over there that a lot of it's in addition to what we do here on YouTube. Today I just put up The Rise and Fall of Freedom in America. It's a Liberty Pen production. It is excellent. It's something that everybody ought to watch, watch again, watch repeatedly. It's one of the best that I've seen in just a short period of time. I think it's just about, I don't know, 25 minutes, something like that. And that you should send it on to everyone you know of a like mind. It talks, a lot of times we talk about how America has changed and the way that it used to be. I'm going to read something out of one of my books in just a minute that kind of talks to that. But it's one thing to kind of think back and think that we remember. We see the past through the haze of time, and it's not always as sharp to us as we think it is. But watching this over the rise and fall of freedom in America, and I'll put the link down here, or you can go to Patreon and just look for American Reversion. You'll get there. But watching this brings it back with such clarity, and they do such a good job from clear back the founders through the current time. It brings clarity to exactly how America has changed, how the thought has changed, some of the great leaders and the things that they have said. And I deal with this stuff all the time, and still watching these kinds of things really bolsters me and re-energizes me when it comes to to dealing with what we're going to do with our country. I've had some couple of people ask me if I was going to monetize this YouTube channel when the time came. You need a certain number of viewers, subscribers, I forget what it is, in order to be able to monetize. We're not near there yet, so I do ask that you like it and subscribe, share it with your friends, get more people on here. I appreciate that. And the more people that are a part of this, and the more people contributing comments, and kind of creating that community that strengthens us all, the better. But when we get to that point, I don't know if I will monetize this channel or not. I'm leaning toward not. I'm not making that promise, but I'm leaning toward not. I do appreciate, if you want to support this channel, there is a way you can do it by going over and joining on Patreon, which I think is a great option. But I thought also, somebody said, well, why don't you advertise your books on here? I said, well, what a great idea that is. So I can just, and I think here on American Reversion, if I haven't in the past, I will start, put the link to my books down below, so that you can go to Amazon, take a look at them, see if they something that appeals to you. For those of you who may not be familiar with that part of me, I have written a series of books called the Stonemont Series. I'll just say this right now. This video brought to you by the Stonemont Series, written by me, Steve Smith. The first one is the Reversion, and that's where I got the name for this channel, American Reversion. It means to return to original ways, or return to the ways that things used to be. The second book is, let me see here, yes it is the Revival. I have something sticking in here because I'm going to be reading something out of there in just a minute. And you can tell which ones they are of the series. It'll say book 2 of the Stonemont series, number of stars there. The third one is the Renewal. And the fourth one is An Appeal to Heaven. The fifth one that I'm working on right now, Blessings of Freedom, should be out this spring. And I'm having a great time writing it. And I hope that other people will have a great time reading it. Okay, let me set this laptop down. It did what it needed to do, and that's to remind me the title of that video. when we talk now, this series of books is a series about it's about preparedness and survival and such. The story is the collapse of society following an EMP, and then the rebuilding of society. I won't go into the whole thing about that, but in it, I use the series as a vehicle for my thoughts on how society should be, on government, on freedom, on a return, the chance to return America to a point where I think it should be. Um, and so I want to just read a section here and then maybe discuss it for a moment um, from the book. Um, Let me find my place here. Um, and if we kind of like watching this video that's over on Patreon, uh, uh, I take a portion here. I have Jim Wyatt. He's the main character of this. Uh, Reading, I think this is the 4th of July celebration. It's maybe the Thanksgiving. Oh, I'm sorry. I address a lot of different. Yeah, that it is a Thanksgiving. He's everyone from the Stonemont village who have come together, the community have come together to celebrate their first Thanksgiving after the great collapse, and they're meeting in the great hall and having a feast, and so he's addressing them. So I want to talk about this. This first part, uh, actually, it does come from my family history, and then I'll go on from there. He says, I was reading through some of our old family history earlier today and came across a passage describing one of our branches who came from Switzerland and settled in Virginia during the early 1700s. It struck me that our time is in some ways very similar. I think you will see the relevance. He had put on his glasses and begun to read. Yeah. And this, what I'm about to read here, it comes exactly, I have the handwritten piece of paper that that my great whatever wrote this down about the family. It says, at that time, this section, Northern Virginia, in the early 1700s, was a wilderness. Deer roamed through the forests, and the streams abounded in fish, ducks, and geese. Wild and dangerous beasts were plentiful. I think I got 2 pages. They were schooled in the hardships of pioneer times. They felled the giant oak and erected their log cabin in the wild woodlands. They preferred such environment. Sorry, the lighting's kind of bad here. They preferred such environment in a land dedicated to religious and political freedom, rather than to suffer persecution in their native land. He had paused. This is kind of a looking back section here. Taking off his glasses, and surveyed the silent faces looking back at him. We are in a new wilderness, and dangerous beasts are once again plentiful, though most of them are two-legged. We are becoming schooled in a new kind of pioneer life, and we felled the trees to build our cabins. But more than any of that, we can see the greatest parallel in their preference to live their lives in a land dedicated to religious and political freedom, rather than to suffer under persecution in what their native countries had become. We can reflect on that, what our country has become. The hall remained quiet, and he continued. Many of us have said that the country we grew up in had ceased to exist long before the collapse. The America that valued liberty, virtue, morality, hard work, and self-reliance had devolved into a semi-socialist state of coddled, dependent, incompetent, politically correct crybabies who were offended by anything with which they disagreed, and who, by their sheer numbers and political influence, were able to stifle and control the producing class which had done most of the work to support them, consequently driving our once great country into a chaotic decline. Well, that's exactly what we're in the middle of right now. He had paused for a moment, noting the many who nodded in affirmation of what he had said. The collapse returned us to a reset point, a point from which it may be possible to rebuild the America we once knew. Whether we will be able to do this will depend on a number of things, some of which will be beyond our control, but we must concentrate on and dedicate our efforts to those areas over which we do have control. We must build the future we want our children to live in. Sounds of approval came from the crowd, and he continued. Patrick Henry said that virtue, morality, and religion are the great pillars of government, and were the armor that made our country invincible in the early days. John Adams said that the U.S. Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people, and that it was wholly inadequate for the government of any other. There can be no argument that those pillars cracked and crumbled in later years, or that the moral and religious underpinnings of our country dissolved in a culture increasingly consumed with self and celebrity worship. As Abraham Lincoln, Douglas MacArthur, and many others warned us, the nation which could not be defeated from without was eventually weakened and defeated from within. So, I wrote that some years ago when the revival first came out, and as I was writing those books, I was writing about really what has happened to our country, along with the adventure of the survival and preparedness and all that. But I kind of had a double intent there, and the underlying intent was our country has devolved. We know that. If we look honestly, we see what those reasons were. And now we have to decide whether we're willing to put in the work that it'll take to create, as I said in there, we have to create the future we want our children and grandchildren to grow up in. And that takes and is going to take daily effort on the part of all of us. As I said in a previous one, with this gun control bill coming up, we have to be involved in that. We can't duck the responsibility and say, I'm just waiting for the big one to start. No, we have to be involved in every step of this conflict. If we're not, we're giving the field over to the other side. So my main purpose of this was just to share those thoughts and hopefully to direct you over to that video over there. It's something that you will want to watch many times. It's something that you will want to share with your friends, and it brings home with the clarity we need the real changes that have happened in our country, and brings to the front of our minds the importance of doing everything we can to take it back to the way it used to be and should be. So I'll leave you with that and remind you that America needs a reversion, and it needs every one of you to be a part of it. So jump on and share and bring your friends and become an educator, not just a consumer of the principles on which our country was based and needs to continue to be run. You all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.